Hello, everyone. This is Kyla from Hidden Gems Literary Emporium here in New Brunswick. Today we have author Dr. Christine Van Horn, the author of God in Schools, which is on display here at Hidden Gems Literary Emporium. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Chicago.
Yes, it's such a pleasure to join you. And I have a connection to New Brunswick. I worked there some time ago, so it's really a nice little connection.
Right. So you're even if you're not physically here, you're still here in some
Yeah,
way, shape, or form through this book.
yes, I am.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so why don't we begin by you introducing yourself and telling us the inspiration behind God in Schools?
Absolutely. My name is Dr. Christine Van Horn, and I grew up in the Christian school system in a Catholic school, and we had God in schools. And even at that point in time in the 50s, um, in the public school system, God was in school. And that really changed in the 60s when prayer was taken out of school. And as I look throughout time and the decades since, I've noticed great changes in the American school system. And it's very different from where it really used to be and how it was founded. And so I wrote the book to document where it was, where we are now, and what we can do to put God back into the school system again. So that's the inspiration for writing the book. And, as I reflected back and did my research, the the Bible in school was really a foundation back in the late 1600s when the American school system was put into place. And throughout the 1700s and 1800s, the Bible was used as the foundation for reading and for literature and for many different, forms of study in the school system. And that really changed very much, in more recent times. And so this is just really a study of looking back, the inspiration for God in Schools as it was originally formed, and how that changed and what we can do for the future.
And so, was this a topic that was always placed upon your heart, or did it come to you at a certain time in your life?
It came at a certain time in my life. I have a doctorate degree in theology, and this was my doctoral dissertation. And it had been on my heart for quite some time. Somebody in my age group who really, was in school in the 50s and 60s can see the difference. And so looking at what I experienced as a child and where things are today had been really heavy on my heart. And so, I wrote it as my doctoral dissertation. And my advisor said, you can't let this sit on a shelf. You need to turn it into a book. And so that's what I did. So the material, when I went to put it into a book, was there, but I had to put it into a book-like format. So that's what I did. But this has been kind of something that I have really noticed and pondered about for several decades.
And so I remember you telling me about your dissertation and reading the book. I'm not surprised by that because are a lot of historical references, which I love. You list different court cases, or different specific times in history that we all encourage readers to dig into and dive into. And even when readers come into the bookstore, we always tell them, if the name starts with a capital letter, or if the author is talking about something, just take the time to Google it, because you'll probably be surprised that even in fiction books, they're based off of real things. So people who also like history, um, may enjoy this book because there are a lot of historical references.
There are, and that's really a foundation for where things turned, and I'm a big study in history. I love it. And this was really important to look at where we were. So it's not just from a Christian or religious perspective. Like you said, it's historical and it's court cases and quite a lot of that information in there. So readers of history, I think, will find an interest in this as well.
Yes. And so, okay, so you're in college, you write this dissertation, and your professor tells you that you need to turn this into a book. So, is that something that you did right away? What was that process like? Did you encounter any challenges through that time?
I did. This is actually the second publisher I have of the book. I had a first publisher. And so I want to encourage all of your listeners, if they want to write a book, really do some research on the companies that would be the publishing companies. The first one I had was good, but they didn't work to the same level as the one that I have now. So the publishing company that I have is out of Indiana. I have been to them, I have met with them, and they follow a specific format. The first one just took all my words and they published it. They did a great job of publishing, but they didn't have the editing concepts to the level that I have now. So I use the Chicago Manual of Style, and I learned all these things. It's been a learning process in looking for a publisher. So I want to encourage all of you to really, study the company that you would have as a publishing company, and find out what their strengths are and the type of work that they publish.
And that's great advice because we do come across a lot of authors and writers. A lot of people today, they want to go the self-publishing
Mm-hmm.
route, or they want to work with smaller companies who they feel would give their work more attention.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're doing anything, there's always a R&D, research and development phase.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, especially when you're putting out a body of work that literally represents you and what you think about the world, or even if it's fiction, you're giving people a piece of your mind to have for, dare I say, the rest of their lives. I mean, people
Yes.
keep books for the rest of their lives, they pass them down to their children. So I think that's a great point to make also.
And one thing I'd like to encourage all of your listeners and readers to do is, if you have an idea inside your heart for a book, write it down. When I even started this as a dissertation, I didn't realize it was going to grow and become what it was. I had concepts in my mind, and I just, went to a computer and wrote them down, and I get another inspiration and I'd write it down. And slowly it evolved into, a book like this. So for any of you that are watching, and if you have an idea on your heart, the place to start is at your computer, and just get a Word document up and start writing and follow through, because there's so much inside of people that need to be said. And if you have that inspiration, it means you're supposed to write a book. You're supposed to write an article. You're supposed to tell the world what it is. And I just want to give that encouragement.
And that's liter artists tend to have a type of reservation sometimes when it comes to expression, and maybe not even artists, maybe just people in general, because authorship is, I mean, they call it literary arts for a
Yes.
reason. And
Yes.
so sometimes as artists, we stop ourselves from doing something great because we're already thinking, oh, what if no one likes it? Oh, I don't know how to publish a book. Oh, I can't. But I have all these other things. And we tell people the same thing that you just said. You literally just have to start.
You do. You do. And just write it down. And when you get inspiration, you write it down. I actually keep a notepad by the side of my bed. I get inspiration, sometimes in the middle of the night or when I'm
Right.
getting up in the morning, and I just write those notes down and transfer them to my computer as soon as I can. So everybody, that's just a word of encouragement.
Right. Thank you for that. And so this is for principals. That's cute. Principals for principals, teachers, and parents.
Mm-hmm. It's really geared to education. So
Right.
the education goes into, the people that are responsible would be principals in schools, teachers, parents. It could be guardians. I've realized it could be, those that maybe have like a, children's club or something, where they're, anybody who's got, an authority over children or is directing them. There's principles in here that will give you some insight into how to handle situations or how to change your thinking as far as education. And so, yeah, it's really meant for any adult, but those are the specific ones that I targeted. And as I write, I give examples of what to do in a school situation or what to do in a home situation and things
Right.
like that.
And that's interesting because some children, well, over the past year, a lot of children have been going to school at home.
Yes.
And so the parents are now the teachers in a lot of sense, and maybe even the principals in a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And then as students start transitioning back to school, um, you know, these principles are things that they can remember, but
Yes,
also can transfer from home to school.
absolutely. Absolutely. It really is. And there's more and more children that are becoming homeschooled,
Yes.
after all the COVID situation, more of that, even like homeschool groups and things. And that
Yeah.
all applies to it. It really does. It's how to approach education in
Mhm.
a perspective that is more godly than can occur in some situations.
Hmm. And one of the things that I really like about this book is you talk about um, core characteristics that children should grow up with. And we were talking about this in over the phone. I'm trying to find the page because you have a list of that. Here they are. It's on page 59. And
Okay.
so
I will look
it
it up
lists,
here too.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to look it up too. So I'm looking at the
Oh,
same list.
yay. Yeah,
Okay.
that's her book right
Yes.
there. So yes, a list of character traits. And most people who know us know that our son's name is Truth. And you and I talked on the phone about how we wanted to give him a name that was a character trait, a value that he could grow up with and carry through for the rest of his life. And so truthfulness is the first one on here, genuine and accurate words and actions. And then you talk about integrity, responsibility. So where did you get this list? Is this something that you grew up with, or is this something that you began to embody in your adulthood?
It's something I think as I became an adult and started looking at, how society as a whole acts today, and how it differs from when I was growing up, I realized one of the big differences is in character. And so characters become something that's been very important in my life. This is not something we had talked about, but I taught a program called Character Club, and it was for all children, and it was just teaching character traits. It was uh, for all children, and it was just, these are important things we should all have in our lives. And so I actually have a list of 225 character traits that I think are important. So what's in the book here is just a few of them, but I am working on future programs to develop the character traits. So character is very big as a focus of mine.
That sounds lovely. 225. That is an
Yes.
extensive list. And out of these, what is
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Is it 8? Let me flip the page.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. If you had to choose one from this list of 8, which would you say is the most important?
Good question. I think either truthfulness or integrity, the one of the top two, because everything else will be a component of them. So if you're truthful, you're going to have some component of each of these. Or if
Right.
you're a person of integrity, then you're going to be truthful, you're going to be obedient, you're going to have courage, you're going to have initiative. In some ways, those first two, I think, are probably at the top of the list,
Right.
to because the rest can be tied to them. Although these are ones that I thought were really important as a whole.
Yes. Um, and I agree also. Um, I think honesty is very important when we're
Yes, it
talking.
is.
I mean, whether we're talking about building familial relationships or friendships or just any type of relationship, honesty and truthfulness has to be at the foundation. Otherwise, the relationship will be built upon something that does not have integrity.
That's right. Exactly. I agree with you completely.
Um, yeah, we published a video about that list because we're constantly talking about character values, and that's something that we were talking before we started recording about timeless truths. And
Yes,
so those are just things that are timeless, no matter who you are or what time period we are in. Um, Truthfulness, integrity, responsibility, those are all things that your parents typically talk to you about or teach you as you're growing up in this world.
absolutely. And they are timeless.
I agree.
And that's why, I can look back and see, how things were for me growing up in the 50s and 60s and
Hmm.
say there's some key elements that are the same today, but they're not stressed to the same level. Yes, there are wonderful parents who are teaching these things,
Right.
but as a society as a whole, you don't see it. You see a lot of unrest and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of turmoil.
Right.
And it's harder for children to know what right actions to take unless, parents make a conscious effort to focus on these things.
Yeah. And so we also talk about that a lot, how society is changing. And we studied journalism and media studies in college, and they teach you about how messages are framed and put out there, and how the media has psychological effects on adults, children, and the way that we progress or digress, move
Yes.
forward or backward, increase or decrease in this world. So with all of that in mind, what do you foresee for the future of today's youth?
Well, today's youth, they're in a difficult situation because there is all this uncertainty. There is all this turmoil. And I've put a list together. So I'm going to be kind of looking at it a little bit, but there's a list of things that I feel are obstacles that our children face today. So this is just for parents to be aware of these things. And it's harder for children to process some of these things because they're so new and so different. And even the parents today didn't go through all of these things that their children are facing. But we're in such uncertain times. Who would have ever thought we'd have COVID? We'd be in the middle of a pandemic. It came from out of the blue, and it's just an example of the uncertainties that we face today. And the second one is fast moving information. So, these are the things that children are facing that we all need to take into some kind of consideration for them. And this is for now and for their future. They don't have the developed life experiences that their parents have. So they're young and they're vulnerable and they're innocent, and then there's these chaotic things that can happen around them. So a good example is, schools doing these drills for, active shooter coming into the school. How horrible it would be for a child to try to process what's going on when they're innocently sitting in a classroom and just wanting to learn how to read, and then something terrible happens around them. Or it could happen out on the street, or it could be to a friend or a family member. But there's so many more of these things that you hear about today than we did in decades past. And then situations can be developing really rapidly. So you could be walking down the street and there's something going on, or a shooting, or a gang thing, or I mean there could be all these things, and they're just really happening really rapidly and very unclear. As adults we may have trouble processing those things that are going on, but for children it's even worse than that. And then I've been focusing so much on character, and so much of the character that we had, you had, the parents have had, as in our own lives when we were young, it's really falling away. And we just don't see it so much anymore. And so, these are some of the things that are really difficult for them to do. And, it's not going to get better, but what we can do as adults is make it better for our children. We can make a difference in their lives. They can't get it in school necessarily, but we can give that to them. And that's our responsibility for all the children in our lives.
And there's an old timeless truth that says the village raises the child. And there's another timeless truth that talks about how foundation and education start at home, because
Yes.
the parents are the first teachers. As soon as they come out of the womb, we are the teachers. They learn from us. They learn what to value, how to act, how to carry themselves from the people that they see around them, even as young as newborn babies. And our son, he's our first son, but it was miraculous to see how quickly you can tell that they are observing and learning and soaking things in. And so what happens when we all begin to teach our newborn babies the importance of truthfulness and integrity and things like that? Babies overstand more than we think that they do.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is true. And they do learn for us. And it's so important that we realize that. You realized it, and that is good. And so, for parents to just realize, wait a minute, I am the teacher. They are learning from me. This is really key, because it makes a difference on how you set an example for your children and what you decide to teach them. They will mimic what they see. So you have to be really careful with what you do.
Mm-hmm. And so I like this list, which is kind of a follow-up to what we're talking about how we can help our children become successful, and how we can make sure that no matter what type of world they are living in, that they can have a fruitful future, because that's all any parent really wants anyways, for their child to be happy and, safe in this world.
Absolutely. So do you want me to go through some of the things that I have in my list?
Please, that'd be great.
All right. The first thing is for parents to think of themselves not only as a teacher, because they're the teacher, like you said, but also a mentor or a life coach. And something that I have realized in more recent decades is, we adults need a coach. Somebody that can help us. A coach or a mentor is somebody who's going to take the experience they know and give it to you without you having to go through all the steps to get there. And we can do that, as parents, and mentor our kids or help coach them in the right direction. It's not just for sports, but it's for all kinds of things in life. So once adults start seeing themselves in that light, it's going to make a difference, because they know that what they do is what their children are going to follow. And it's being the teacher, being that mentor, and that's the first one that I think is really important.
I also like the one, be an encourager. And it's so important that your child knows that they can do anything that they set their mind to in this world. And we always talk to parents about how our reaction as parents can affect the child's interpretation of what happened. So, in our experience, when our son started walking, some family and falling, some family members would be like, ah, 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 and we would always step in and say, hold on, he's okay. He's okay. So when he falls, we just say, Truth, you're okay. Get up. Come on. And then we just keep it moving, keep it pushing. And then, they don't grow up with that, with fear when we overreact, So even if they get hurt, you encourage them, look, you're okay. Sometimes we fall down, but we get up, and, you got a little boo-boo. It's okay. We're going to kiss it, make it better. And then we always take him back to the scene of when he fell or something like that, so that he's not afraid to do it again.
Oh, that is really good. That is good. That's a great example for, parents to be able to follow. And I love that you've named him Truth. He's going to grow up. That's an encouragement to him. How can he not be truthful? His name is Truth. And that's really important. But parents encouraging the kids are so good. Even in school, children will hear such negative things from their fellow students.
Yes.
You can't sing, you didn't run fast enough, and so they may get that throughout the day by children who are not really meaning any harm. It just kind of comes out. But being that encourager, you can do that at home and make up that difference. No, you really can run farther. You really can read better. You can do these things. And you want to play the piano? You can play the piano. Just practice. Those things are really important.
Yeah. And, even I remember in school, sometimes people would say things to me that were mean, but I would always, the first thing that popped into my mind when that happened was the things that my parents told me. They always told me I was beautiful. They always told me I was smart. They always told me I was this and that. And, so it makes it easier for the child to have confidence when they know that the most important people in their life have confidence in them and feel as though they could do anything.
And I like what you said about having that confidence. They need to feel that from us, that, we as the adults really believe in them.
Right.
And that is so critical. So I like how you said that.
Thank you. And but that's just another timeless truth that the children are the future. And so they are the ones that are going to be leading this country and making decisions. And, if there are things wrong with society or the world, they most likely are going to be the ones to either change that or continue it if we don't intervene. And if we don't lead them and encourage them in the right way to which they should go. And so that's why we do a lot of youth programs here. We love when they walk by, we pull them inside and we talk about art and books and we always ask, what do you like to do? What are some of your hobbies? And some of them know, and some of them are like, I don't have any. I'm like, well, no, yes, there has to be something that you like to do. And so even if they say, well, I play a lot of video games, I say, okay, well, do you like to draw? Maybe you can start, drawing some characters. I have a friend who designs characters for video games. And so we talk about those things and, how can we cultivate their interests so that when they're going to school, they feel like, okay, thank you. They feel like, okay, I'm here with a goal in mind. Like I could see myself after graduation, or I could see myself 10 years from now. It's hard for a child who cannot see themselves past the next day or the next week, let alone the next year. But, all of these things, character traits and things of that nature, all very important. So, okay. Tell us what you have going on next in your world and where people can connect with you.
Absolutely. The easiest place to connect with me, if you have my book, it's right on the back. And I'm going to give it to you anyway. It is through my website. My main website is www.drchris.co. It's not com, but co. So it's www.drchris.co. And there's a link to be able to email me there. And so that is the best way to do it. I have other books. I've got other work that I'm doing. But what I'm focusing on now is I'm focusing on character. It's really so near and dear to my heart. Yeah. So I have written a new book, which will be published early into next year. It's written, it's turned into the publisher, and it's called Teach Your Children Timeless Truths in Uncertain Times. And it's really kind of talking about what parents and adults can do to help bring character and also some life skills that I'm calling them life skills into the lives of children, like time management, money management, some of the skills that are not as talked about, but we all need that to be successful. And then I've started a program that's really focusing on these things for children called Wisdom Decisions. And all that information will become available on my drchris.co website when it is available. So it's a good central place to go to for that information. But I'm looking to, I've got a program that will become live after the first of the year that is teaching parents and other adults how to teach character traits and life skills to their children. So it'll be, an online program and with material that's sent to the parents every week. But it's really just helping the adults to do that teaching, because children need to learn from their parents, from their teachers, from the adults, grandparents in their lives. And so, it's putting that responsibility into all of those people, but I'm giving them the material to do it.
That sounds lovely. And please keep us posted on everything you have going on.
I will.
For those of you who support and love Hidden Gems, thank you so much for all of your amazing support. Please come by and check out God in Schools on display here at Hidden Gems Literary Emporium. We're located at 55B Morris Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey, not far from Dr. Van Horn's old job. And or give us a call at 609-361-4331. We also do virtual appointments, and we can ship this directly to your home. All the way from Chicago. Thank you
Yes.
so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you. This was lovely. I enjoyed our talking time together.
Great. Okay, this is great. So like I said, everyone, come on by Hidden Gems, get you a copy of this book if this topic interests you. Make sure you have your phone out, because like I said, we love historical references. And so there are a lot of people, places, things that can take you on a deep dive through history, which is quite cool. I just flipped open to one. You reference a lot of speeches, and there's also a lot of quotes from historical figures. So I just flipped open to in a speech before the joint convention of the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts at the State House in Boston on January 9th, 1961. And you gave a quote from Kennedy. So even in that one sentence alone, there's so much to learn from. So thank you so much for your time and your time spent putting your work out into the world for everyone to see. And so I know that we will be chatting again soon.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you so much. Thank you for the interview. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Have a good day now.
Okay, bye-bye.